Hello everybody and welcome to our bonus podcast for this week, which is a listener question segment. Hurrah! Hurrah,
Yay!
Gemma, hello. Gemma is here.
Welcome to our bonus thing.
I'm here too, I'm Michael.
Right, listener questions. We've got 2 questions. We're going to tackle them in order.
You don't want to do them
Beginning
backwards?
with the first one.
Good plan.
Right, the first question we've got is from Jack, who says, which characters need to change jobs and what could they do?
Thank you everybody who sent in their questions, by the way.
Thank you, everybody.
I did a little bit of an appeal at the weekend, and we had some good ones in, but we also had a few old ones as well that we're drawing from. So yeah, Jack wants to know about changing jobs.
A lot of characters who I think are pretty good where they are. Like Abby, I think she's really good as a mechanic. I believe her. I believe Adam is a... What do you think?
Relatively competent lawyer.
How do you feel that... because we've got suited versus booted, because this was my idea. Suited or booted.
Yeah, I mean...
So if you're suited, you're right, and if you're booted, we don't think you should be...
There's a good number of characters that I've got no qualms with the kind of job that they've been doing. Partly, in some cases, it's because they've just been doing it for so long, and who knows what else they'll be good at. Like Dev is he's fine as a corner shop
feel very believable, don't they?
Could be good on the stage
Carla's
as well.
Great, yeah, Kevin, yeah.
Well, Carla can be a little bit... can't she? Especially recently.
Carla's personality has kind of shifted, but I believe that she is a businesswoman.
Yes. And I think, Tracy doing her flower arranging...
I love Glenda.
She's been doing that for like 4 years.
In the Rovers. I love Jenny in the Rovers. I love Daisy in the Rovers.
But there are some characters we think that maybe aren't suited for their jobs. I mean, are there any that straight away spring to mind for you that's like, what on earth
Well, there's some of them where I'm like,
doing?
What do they even do?
Did they go to the careers advisor at their school?
Like Eileen, I know that she works at streetcars, but does she anymore? Have you seen her there for a long time?
Well, she's in Thailand at the moment.
Didn't Peter take over on the switchboard?
Well, I get confused about who's working at streetcars, to be honest. I think we've got
Debbie,
Peter,
what's
Eileen...
she up to? What she needs to get... We need to find out what she's actually up to these days.
Yeah,
I want more of her.
No,
she's
but
an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean anything. Daniel, what's he up to? He's training as a teacher.
Yeah, well, I think that, if we're going over Debbie, she knows the hotellery business, doesn't she? And hostelry and everything, and that's what she's doing. I mean, I don't have any problems with her being there. Yes, I'd like to see her on screen more, but I don't think she's bad at it. I mean, with Daniel, he's kind of a bit of an undecided one for me, because I believe he'd make a good teacher? I don't know. The evidence from last year maybe doesn't suggest so, but what is it? Where's he teaching at the moment?
I don't know.
Is it like a prison or something? I don't know, but I mean, it seems like he obviously wants to do teaching, but they're not maybe going to show him do that. Is he teaching at the place where Max is going to end up if he goes down for this? I don't know. I'm going to let maybe Daniel settle into the new job and just assume he's doing fine until he gets fired and pushes an inmate down the stairs or something. Is there anyone that you think absolutely get them out right now?
Who do you think?
I don't know. I mean, somebody like, one might say that, the 2 police officers that we have on the cast aren't necessarily most suited to their jobs, Craig and Spider.
I think I don't mind them being police officers.
Keeps them out of trouble. I don't think they're necessarily very good at it, so I don't mind them being
I know,
it.
but I think there's lots of people that crap at their jobs.
Yeah, but I think just like Craig is so completely unbelievable. I think when he comes, trundling along, saying, "Oh, what's going on here?" Then sort of thing, and he doesn't feel like he has the right authority or gravitas to be enforcing the law.
So who do you think? Who have we said you don't think is suited?
Who have you said? I've said those 2. I've said. No, I can't remember whether I've said anyone other than I've lost track already. Do you buy Billy as a archdeacon? I'm going to say no, but only because I'm not sure whether Coronation Street are really sure about what an archdeacon does apart from dishing out soup. So, I mean...
Do you think that Michael and Sarah make sense to you as entrepreneurs?
I mean...
Michael, when he first was introduced, was a character who was super into design, inventions, wasn't he? Like he invented the app that claps.
Yeah, of course. And he's had his baby grow business and a few other things in the past, but it's always just felt like it's come of something to nothing, really, hasn't it? It's just like I'm gonna tinker around on my iPad or on my drawing or whatever, and to have him as he currently is, setting up into a business partnership with Sarah. It just feels like it's a little bit above his head. I think at least Sarah has got some experience of, sitting in an office, stacking papers and swinging your Newton's cradle or whatever it is office people do. I've clearly got no idea. But even she's like, I don't know.
I'll tell you somebody who I think needs a different job or a job at all, and that's Toya.
She does need a job.
I really think that they're missing a trick with her being a counsellor. Now, I know that in real life it would not be correct to counsel people that you know. That would be unethical. But Coronation Street doesn't care about real life. And sometimes I think that's a good thing. Sometimes I think it's a bad thing. But in the case of Toya, wouldn't she be just a fantastic sounding board for some characters who don't have anybody to talk to? And there's an opportunity to create I'm in a dilemma here because somebody's told me something and I can't keep it a secret. You know what I mean? I know that it wouldn't actually reflect that well on counselling as a profession, and that would be obviously a bad thing. But I think that Coronation Street doesn't care about that. There are so many other professions where people do stuff that's completely unethical all the time, and there's no consequence for it. So let's actually do something in the service of stories and give Toya, give Toya and Spider, I really want them to take one of the business spaces in the precinct and create some kind of hybrid business, like a drop-in centre for, fruit smoothies and they could
They've
actually
done it in the past.
They could actually put something together with Maria here and create an advice and drop-in centre that also sells really expensive smoothies.
Is that the sort of thing that you find in 60s precincts, though? I don't know. That feels a little bit too la-di-da.
Well, I want to just say that up the road from us, we have a little tiny precinct area, and they've got a Morrison's and a couple of takeaways. But they also have a community centre, which we've never been into, but it has things like a food larder and stuff like that. Now, I know that Yasmin sold the community centre to somebody, and we don't know who it was.
No, I think that's
the last
just
time they
generically
used it,
owned at the moment.
I can't remember were they holding the drop-in centre there?
No, the drop-in centre stuff was all at Speeddale, wasn't it? They used it for Griff's speech.
That's right.
A few months ago.
I really, really want Toya and Spider to do something that suits their personalities and their skills. And I honestly think doing something like that, because, a community centre, I think that would work really well for both of them, because they care about people and they're very socially aware and socially conscious and they want to help people. But I also think in a community centre there wouldn't be a reason that you shouldn't have a little cafe that sells things. And they ran a juice bar in London for a few years. We know that's canon in the show. Why can't they open a little vegan cafe?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I think,
and that would be somewhere else for people to go and have a cup of tea.
Seeing Spider as a policeman, it was a good twist. It kind of semi-made sense about him doing it, but I think he didn't.
The time has passed now.
The time has passed, and I think lots of viewers watching him kind of skulking about in Griff's flat were thinking, it just doesn't necessarily suit the role. And I know it's he's working for the man and everything, but it felt to me like he was just a little bit out of his depth. And I think, teaming him up with Toya to do something like that, maybe in the precinct. We've seen so little of the precinct so far. It's difficult to know what sort of people frequent those shops.
Not
so
necessarily
maybe
the precinct.
What else is going on at the precinct? Because if we're looking at new jobs for characters, there's plenty of businesses there that people can now spread into. Because if we look at the list of all the characters in Coronation Street, what percentage would you say work either on the street or in a building that has got a set, like a permanent set on Coronation Street? I'm going to say it's anywhere between 95 to 100% of characters. So if we want to give people another job, so they need to fit somewhere in the set.
Even people with jobs that feel a bit beyond the scope of Corrie still have a set. Like Adam, yes, he's a lawyer, but he also has an office on
on Victoria Street.
And we've also got Aggie. Now, there isn't actually there's nowhere on Coronation Street or any of the established sets, but there is a massive medical centre set that she is obviously always seen on.
I mean, we see her mostly in the hospital, don't we, with Aggie?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm thinking, like, we're talking about the medical centre. I don't think we've got any characters that work there anymore, have we? And
No.
it used to, for a long time, you'd have like Gail behind the counter there,
Or Moira.
I mean, I suppose Dr. Gadas is working there if you can, as much as you can count her as a regular character. But it feels like they don't even often go to the medical centre. It's usually the injuries that people in Coronation Street are getting, or illnesses or whatever. It's just like straight to A&E. So it feels almost a little bit like the medical centre is a bit redundant.
I'm actually kind of struggling to see anybody on our list of main characters who works off the street. The only person, actually, that you can really say doesn't probably have a working set is Billy.
No, he doesn't. You're right, because all we ever see him is behind his table.
You've got the medical stuff, you've got the hotel, you've got the police thingy, you've got the courts.
Billy's got St Mary's Church, but I don't think he's based there anymore, is he? It's not a set, but it is a place that we know that he works in. But I don't think he does, because now he's archdeaconing, whatever that entails. He's all over the place. Daniel, of course, in his new role, doesn't work at that school anymore. So I suppose Victoria, not we're talking about Weatherfield High, but so I mean, I think
Weatherfield High and Bezie Street also both have SETI areas. Like, I think they've got the school, the classroom. I think that's a set. I'm not completely sure.
I think so. But back in the day, they would film it at an actual school. So we're seeing, like, in the classic Coronation Street at the moment, Charlie Ramsden, who was an English teacher with Ken back in the early 2000s, and that was filmed at a school, and you can tell it is a classroom there. But anyway, that's by the by. So if we were to think about some places in the street, or that have got sets that nobody seems to work there at the moment, is there anyone that you think would fit there? Because Peter, for example,
he works on the switchboard.
I think that he has got more skills than that. I mean, he's been the landlord of the Rovers Return, and I don't.
He's also a bookie, so he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I can't remember whether he's part owner in Streetcars at the moment. I'm not really sure, but driving around in his cab, it just feels like he would be capable of, managing a little bit more than that. But maybe he just doesn't want to. I mean, there was the story about him possibly buying the snooker hall a few years ago, wasn't there? And I could really see, I'd love to see that expanded into a real set that the characters would be going down socialising in. And I can totally see Peter behind the bar in this dingy, kind of grimy, not smoky anymore, but back in the day it would be, snooker club. And that would be his little area. And I think that would be right up his street.
Yeah.
Just sitting, chewing the cud instead of Eileen in Streetcars. That doesn't sit right for me.
No, I agree. There are a few people who have been shunted into jobs that it feels like Corey've gone, oh crap, well, what can we do with this person? Like Brian. Brian does make a bit of sense to me as the new proprietor of the cabin instead of Rita. But when was the last time we ever saw him there? We haven't.
No. He seems like he could fit, but we don't know.
It fits perfectly well to me. I totally buy him. I think that they've given us enough reasons. He's had quite a few lines, He's spoken about wanting to move to somewhere else, but when he did, he said he wanted to be a corner shop owner there as well, which, I like the fact that he really enjoys it. And he
likes his retail.
If he's a teacher, if he was a teacher, now some teachers are teachers because they enjoy interacting with people. Some people aren't, but Brian strikes me as the sort of person who enjoys people, and so working in a corner shop, you get to see a lot of people and you get to chat every day. So works with his skill base, but we just don't see that, do we?
No. Going back to Craig, because he, like I said, he just kind of
comical.
He's comical, and it's like, the typical PC plot. Oh, this comes to Craig. He just strikes me as somebody that has got no authority.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't respect him at all.
I mean, they were talking a few years ago about him training to be a detective, and thankfully that never went anywhere. I wonder what happened with that story.
The thing is, you don't not everyone's super bright. You don't have to be bright to be an important or worthy person, right? So this isn't a dig on him, but he's not bright.
No, I don't think he is.
He's friendly, he's amiable, he gets on with everybody, and he's physically imposing. Now, does being a police officer employ all of those strengths? I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, maybe he's the poster boy for Weatherfield Police.
You just said poster, and that made me suddenly think postman. He'd be great as a postman.
Yeah, I think he would. It'd help keep him trim as well. Keep that weight off of him.
He's a fit lad now. He's a friendly guy. I think I would love that idea. Somebody on the street who's a postman, because then you've got a reason to have them walking around everywhere.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a postman on Coronation Street?
I can't remember whether there's ever been one. I mean, I know
Maybe there's some reason.
Harry Hewitt worked in the post office, didn't he, in the sorting office, and I think Alf did back in the day.
Do you think there might be some kind of reason why that you're not allowed to represent His Majesty's
represent the
Postal
Royal Mail?
Service?
I don't know.
Maybe we could have him just be a delivery guy.
I think I like that for Craig. I was thinking for Craig, I'm again just thinking about empty lots at the moment, and nobody works at Tattoo'll Do Nicely. We know that Craig used to be really into his art, didn't he? But to be honest, I think that becoming a police officer has been the downfall of Craig, because I used to really like him when he was just like a nice, unintimidating, kind of friendly, not chavvy, artistic, streaky. He had that girlfriend, didn't he?
Quiet and gentle.
Caitlin or something. Yeah, I thought he was lovely then, but it's putting him into the role of the policeman. That's what's made him a bit of a joke, because everyone's going, what, Craig, a policeman? No. He even gets called Tinks or whatever on the street, doesn't he? Because I just don't think anyone's got any respect for him. But, something that, I don't necessarily see him as being a tattoo artist, but maybe I've got very stereotypical ideas of, the skinhead themselves covered in tattoos.
Listen,
big beard.
Through my work, I know some people who do tattoo artists, and it is all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
I just want to also say that I don't think that the creative arts are represented very well, and that does make a bit of sense, because these are all supposed to be working class people, and it's not that working class people aren't creative, but that is very, very difficult to make a living from being creative if you don't have a lot of support and people that are willing to pay your bills while you train or get your business running. But I really think that being a tattoo artist would be one way that you could make money and be creative at the same time.
I just don't think there's going to be many characters that are going to be wanting tattoos, so we wouldn't get to see him in there in the same way that I think we'd see Peter
it would
in the
be
snooker
sort
hall.
of funny to sort of have, in the same way that we have this is why we haven't had very many scenes inside any of the salons, because who's going to get their hair done when it's COVID? They haven't bothered opening them up. That's what they need to do now, is to open up the salons to extras.
Yeah.
So having an extra in the tattoo parlour would be great. I wonder if you could get Nina in there too. Now Nina's the only other person who can think of who actually is a creative person who's pursued it as a career. I understand that designing clothes, some of the other characters have done that, but like Michael, would you call him creative? I'm not sure.
I would.
Okay.
And actually, I was doing a little bit of looking about, what are some of the most in-demand jobs, most common jobs and everything, just to give me ideas. Because I'm someone who went to school, went to university, back in schools. I don't know much about what jobs there are out there, apart from the stereotypical ones that you learn about when you're 5.
Both of us have jobs
that
haven't changed titles for hundreds of years. They're jobs that everybody understands what they are, and we pursued them when we were teens and have done that job ever since. So all of these office-based jobs we don't understand.
There's lots of jobs here that I go in front of me. I don't know what they do.
Right,
I was just thinking like a graphic designer or something, or somebody who can do digital art, maybe for Underworld, because he had been working in marketing, hadn't he? Michael. But I can see him being much more of a creative, computer graphic designer kind of guy.
I want to
say, what's the stories in that? That's the other thing you have to consider.
The major business, the major employment sector for the UK, I believe, is the service industry.
Right.
Because you've got most common jobs in the UK. You did some research, didn't you? So the most common jobs in the UK, the top 10 are project manager, business analyst, software engineer, data scientist, graphic designer, mechanical engineer, accountant, software developer, data analyst, and delivery driver. All of those rely on business to, you need a business, like nobody needs a project manager if you're working in a school or working in a farm or whatever.
And that's the problem with Coronation Street, isn't it? There's so few businesses that are going to need.
Does that make sense? I mean, I know I'm a bit ignorant about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
These are all really nebulous jobs that I guess a project manager can mean 100 different things depending on what business you work in.
I mean, the biggest business that they've got on Coronation Street is Underworld, and it's really
Where
difficult.
Where did you get this information from? Because it sounds really weird.
The internet somewhere. Some of my sources I've got, and this one I haven't.
Because I think nurses and doctors and teachers are all quite...
I don't know. If Underworld is... The problem, it doesn't really reflect an actual modern business, does it?
No, it doesn't. I've said this for years. I believe this to be true. I don't believe there is any underwear company that exists in the UK, because when Mary Portas, who was an incredibly famous retail guru, she did a whole TV show where she started a business based in the north of England, which was making underwear, and I don't believe it exists anymore. I'm not completely sure, but if it does, it's literally the only one of its kind. Well, and Underworld has never advertised itself or spoken about itself as a boutique made in the UK, extremely high end.
No, I don't think so.
Company. They can't compete with China or places that use machines to mass produce.
Well, they're so small, which means that a lot of these kind of businessy sort of jobs, I don't think they need. The only jobs that seem to exist in Underworld is the boss, packing, knicker stitching, and now marketing,
and sales,
and sales and marketing.
Yeah.
So there's like 4 or 5 jobs in the whole factory. But could Michael be the graphic designer for Underworld? Could he be? Could he be a software engineer? Do they just not need it?
Sales and marketing being introduced as a concept on Coronation Street is the most innovative thing they've done regarding jobs for probably 2 decades. Don't you think?
Yeah, but then they didn't really show very much of anyone doing anything of it, did they?
Just people chatting on the phone to other people, which is, I guess, what sales are.
Maybe it is. I was also having a look for jobs that you don't need a degree for, because one thing we know about characters on Coronation Street, they either ain't got degrees or... They're not working towards one, or maybe they try one then drop out. So come on, Amy, just 2 more years and you're there.
I feel like a family who's waiting for the first generation of children to get their degree, and Amy's going to be that for us, isn't she?
Yeah. I mean, some of the jobs there are jobs that exist in Coronation Street, like police constable, entrepreneur, sales manager. But I mean, train and tram driver is here as number 4 of the top 10 jobs that you don't need a degree for, and that gave me another idea of the fact that Weatherfield tram station has got no current employees on, and I wonder whether there's anybody that we think might make a good tram driver, because did Claire Peacock, she was going to be a tram driver, or was she? I can't remember, or was she a bus driver or something? I'm not sure, but it could be interesting to see somebody say that they're a tram driver. You wouldn't see them at work, but I don't think it really matters. We don't need to see everybody at work. We can trust that they go out there, come back at the end of the day. That
Here's my
used
question.
to be a thing.
Now, I was going to say, is there an issue with representing somebody who works in an institution like the post office or the trams for Manchester? I don't know what it's called. Transport weather.
I don't know.
I thought
think so.
It can't be, because you've got a police officer, which is a real job.
Yeah.
And you've got NHS, which is a real employee.
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest employer in the entire country. And you've got a teacher, which is a real job.
Yeah.
And you've got another thing I've forgotten. But yeah, you've got people who work in jobs that are represented in the real world by real companies and institutions that could definitely have a problem with the way that the characters are portrayed. So it can't be that.
No. So I mean,
also, just to say one more thing about post office, we've definitely seen postmen walking up and down with their big red bags.
Yeah.
on the street as extras before.
I do like the idea of that.
I love that idea.
I can't think of anyone who strikes me necessarily as being tram driver material. I mean, Paul maybe, kind of a friendly.
Oh, Paul, yeah. Definitely not Audrey, because she's crashed the car too many times.
Paul, I'm like thinking, I don't think we've seen him doing much building. He doesn't strike me as being an obvious builder, but maybe, I don't know. But a tram driver, I could maybe see him doing that. What about the precinct then? Because we kind of cycled past that a little bit earlier.
The precinct is really interesting because it obviously exists, and there are lots of businesses that have been created just for the precinct, and we really don't know yet how many of them are going to appear on screen. The only thing we've seen is one scene with Summer in the playground. We haven't probably seen the businesses, but run down the businesses.
So we've got a bakery, we've got that ice cream shop, the Sweet Enough stuff. We've got the pound store. We got the
Peking Order,
the Chinese, which seems to be closed. So that's where your Spider and Toy move in. You got your charity shop, which
definitely.
I think Evelyn's working there now at the moment. I think
the
she talked
charity
about
shop
it recently.
has been on screen before, and it's the Pope.
Yeah, Gregory Pope.
Gregory
Foundation.
Pope. So that, even though it wasn't actually the same one that is going to be, the exterior has been built.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be in the show.
Yeah, and there's a pawn shop there as well. I don't think a lot of these are going to be used, but that doesn't matter for this. I mean, any characters that you think you could see behind a counter at an ice cream shop or a bakery or anything?
I really think that I kind of get the idea that I would like to see Toya and Spider do like maybe Sweet Enough and do like vegan ice creams or sorbets and stuff. I just really think that they have got a background in food sales that hasn't been explored. And if you think about the fact that Leanne has spent a lot of her years when she wasn't being a lady of the night, she was into restaurants. Yeah. And you'd think that Toya would have picked up on some of her expertise or been able to use her as a soundboard for ideas when she was doing the things in London with Spider.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really pushing for.
I don't know, who was it that had the pawn shop in Coronation? It was Tracy, wasn't it? I can't remember who worked there with her.
Was it Rob? No, I don't remember.
Might have been. I don't. Did Peter have anything to do with that, or was he just the bookies there? I can't remember. Because I could maybe see Peter back behind the bar, the Bargenzo or whatever it's called there. Not sure. I mean, none of these are...
Rob Donovan and Tracy Barlow.
Oh, yeah, it was Rob, wasn't it? That's right.
It was rented to them by Peter.
Yeah.
And Tony Stewart started giving them stolen goods. This is all from coronationstreet.fandom.com. Yeah, I would like that. That plays to their strengths. I don't want to take Tracy away from the flower shop. But
it's an option, isn't it? It's an option.
Peter working there with somebody.
Yeah. Baker. I mean, I wonder whether Simon could be a baker or something, because he's just been thrown into random factory job at the moment because I don't know. Best give Simon a job, but that might be something that's quite different for him, and he'd be there with all the rest of the teens as well.
Here's an idea. Yeah, the teens would definitely be hanging around Sweet Enough.
He might get in there and be like a friend. He might be able to join the gang of cool Corrie teens if he worked there. Do
you remember we talked before about the fact that in the UK there are lots of dessert shops and ice cream stores that are open very late at night? And why is that? It's because kids who don't necessarily want to go and drink, like Muslim teens, want somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And so that kind of place could be a good area. But do you remember I'm always harping on, and I know probably everyone's sick of this, harping on about the idea that a knicker factory doesn't make any sense and I want them to change to a food factory?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if they partnered up with a bakery and Sweet Enough? That could be like a little conglomerate of businesses that all work together.
Yeah.
In the same way that Dev has lots of businesses. It would really make sense.
Yeah.
And then you could have, I don't know. I just really want them to stop selling knickers. I think it's supposed to be funny, but it's not anymore.
Can you think of anything else that Billy could do? Because we mentioned earlier that he's not necessarily the world's best archdeacon. I mean, he's certainly got, a few skeletons in his closet.
Well, the main sticking point for me is that he is a Christian in the Church of England, and you're not allowed to get married if you're gay in the church. And it obviously means a lot to him.
Well, it's his calling.
It means a lot to him to be a vicar, but I can't see how but the thing is, he doesn't have a partner at the moment. I remember when he was going out with Todd that this did get raised as an issue.
Mm.
And
I suppose he could work at the charity shop, couldn't he?
You don't really get paid to work in a charity shop.
I guess you don't. I suppose that's the whole point of it.
I'm not against Billy being, a pastoral figure, but I do think that, the elephant in the room is he's working for a company, to a certain extent, who believes that he shouldn't exist in a way. And I don't want to offend anybody, but in the Church of England, you're not allowed to get married if you're gay, and that's just a fact.
I've been thinking about some other jobs as well. I mean, other kind of.
What kind of jobs are there, Michael?
Prison officer, for example. We do get to see the Coronation Street prison every now and then. We don't have a permanent worker there.
Can I just say
somebody maybe like Ryan Connor could be a prison officer, because he's kind of beefy, isn't he?
I just want to
say, doesn't seem to have anything to do.
One thing about Coronation Street is that there are two types of jobs. There's jobs you see the characters doing, and there's jobs that they go off and do and come back.
Yeah.
And the jobs that you go off and do and come back are very, very rare.
Yeah.
And do you really want to give somebody a job that they come back and go, oh God, you won't believe it?
I think sometimes, just for a few of them.
Well,
if only for the, for the more the realism, and we don't see very much of Ryan, so let's stick him in the prison where at least we'll sometimes see him at work. We don't need to see everyone at work all the time.
I've definitely criticised Coronation Street before about the realism and stuff, but I don't want realism to get in the way of making something interesting.
No, that's fair enough. I'm going to stick with that one for my idea. You got. What about an estate agent? Any kind of suave young things that you reckon could stick on a suit and sell you a good house?
Well, this would be quite funny. I've been watching Stathlet's Flats, which is a TV show. I think it was on Channel 4, I can't remember. But it's really, really funny. And one of the characters I worked out the other day, one of the actresses was Fergie on The Windsors.
Oh, really?
She's really funny. So that would be quite fun, but they wouldn't be letting...
No.
And the last time we had anything get sold on Coronation Street, they did it as a collaboration with Purple Bricks. To get money,
to
didn't
get
they?
the Rovers, yeah. I could see maybe Todd being a bit of a smooth talking estate agent. I think he could sell a good sell.
Todd would be great.
I don't mind him in the funeral directors.
I don't think we want to get rid of Todd in the funeral parlour.
They've had so little funeral parlour stuff. I'm happy with him being there, but if we were to give him another job, then an estate agent might be good. I just really like the idea of people going to work and coming back. Derek Wilton, he didn't have a job on the street, and apart from when he was working in the cabin, he was off doing his travelling salesman.
Yeah.
And it wasn't weird. We just didn't see him at work very much.
Yeah.
What about I don't know, any other ideas for jobs or matches? We've come up with a few, but not loads.
One thing that we don't have really, that we've always had on Corrie, is a cleaner.
Is Bernie still doing cleaning at the moment?
I don't think she is.
I thought that she was, but maybe is she doing cleaning for Dev?
I think the most famous cleaner on Corrie is Hilda.
Yeah. I mean, she was cleaner at the Rovers for donkey's years, wasn't she? And I don't believe that the Rovers has a cleaner at the moment, but I don't know if there's anyone that's springing to mind that job would be obviously great for.
One thing that EastEnders has that Corrie doesn't really have is like a proper market, which is unfortunate. And I think that Corrie's a bit reluctant to step on EastEnders' toes. But we had Chesney being a little entrepreneur when he was younger, selling dog accoutrements at the market, and I think that would be quite fun.
When they built the precinct, and we first saw the first pictures of it, they didn't have the play area there, did they? There was a big open space, and I thought that could be perfect for a market, but
I kind of wish they hadn't put it's fun to have a play area there, but I wish that they hadn't put it in, and they should have just had an area that could turn into a market, because that would have made so much sense.
Well, it makes more sense than closing down Victoria Street for like a month and a half every year to have a Christmas market on. That makes no sense whatsoever.
It's a winter market and terrorist bombing area.
Exactly. I'd quite like to move Faye out because she's working at the factory, I'm going to say, at the moment.
Yeah.
And
she's one of these nebulous people.
She's one of these people that, and the factory is a place where it seems recently people have just been thrown if, like, I don't know what to do with them. Like, why is Simon working at the factory?
I don't know.
Why was Summer working at the factory?
I don't know.
And why is Faye and Michael? All of these people are working at the factory, and it just feels like they don't belong there. That's not their
Real job.
raison d'etre to sit in Underworld and have orders barred to them by Carla. But Faye, I don't know whether we know much about her, but she could potentially be working, at the bakery or at Sweet Enough or something, couldn't she?
This is why it's kind of, if you made the bakery, Sweet Enough, and the factory into one big business, this is when you start having people who have a higher education and, business. You know what I mean? The thing is about it is that there are lots of people who are, unskilled labour, let's say, and then very few people who are doing businessy jobs. But the ones that are doing businessy jobs are just, I don't know what she does at sales, don't ask any more questions. But you could definitely have more people that needed to be in management if you had this conglomerate. But do you want that? Do you want to make it that kind of show? It's about people and how they interact with each other. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what their jobs are. The Coronation Street's reason why people have jobs, it really honestly boils down to how can we get these characters to speak to each other and what situations are they going to be in when they're speaking. I think the best idea that we've come up with is Craig being a postman.
I know someone who needs a new job.
Who?
Because I'm not really sure what they do at the moment. Uncle Ronnie. What's Uncle Ronnie's job? What's his skill set?
He's a ducker and a
What's
diver.
he even on the show for? I don't really know. And Coronation Street brought him in, 3 years ago? 2 years ago? I don't even remember. And apart from sticking his tongue down Jenny's throat that one time, he seems like a massive waste of space. But I could see him as like a bouncer or something. Just because he's good at bursting out of his shirt.
I see what you're saying, but we're supposed to get the impression that he's an entrepreneur with lots of investments and business nous.
Yeah.
He doesn't strike me as that particularly.
He doesn't really.
It's really just an excuse as to why he's going out with Debbie.
Well, it's the same as like Gary, for example. He's running a furniture shop at the moment.
Yes, really. Can we just point out the fact that this furniture shop was supposed to be a front for him? What's the word? Washing. What's it called?
Money laundering.
Money laundering. All the stuff he's stolen off of.
Rick Neelan.
Rick Neelan. He doesn't need the front anymore. How is he making money out of this?
I don't know, but what is Gary?
Gary
could be like I wonder whether he could do like a personal trainer or something if he buffed himself up, or Ronnie could do that even, couldn't they?
Gary and Ronnie could go to business together, being security consultants.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
I can't see either of them standing outside of a club going, "Oh, you're not allowed in unless you've got trainers on. You're not allowed in." But I can imagine them saying, "Look, you need 3 guys here. You need this. You need these CCTV. You need this software. You need that alarm system."
Yeah, I mean, Gary's...
We used to have a character who worked for a security alarm company, didn't we? It was that guy that was molesting everybody. Was it Howard? Do you know what I mean? The security company.
It was that. Oh, Alan Bradley. Yeah, he worked for a security company for a little bit.
And then he employed people, didn't he? He employed a couple of female characters to work behind the tills.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Gary's obviously got a history of a builder as a builder as well.
Well, he can just say, I know you need to, this is going to cost you so-and-so amount for cables and this much, for installing the ring doorbell or whatever you want.
I think it feels like we're kind of running out of steam with this one. I don't know whether we've got very far on here. I mean, we've said Craig is a postman. I really like the idea of Michael being some kind of whizzy graphic designer for something a lot of technological and stuff.
If he can design stuff for a t-shirt, he's a graphic designer.
Yeah,
that's the end. That's the be all and end all of it.
Peter, did we say maybe at the bargain shop in the precinct or the snooker hall? I think I prefer him as the snooker hall. The snooker hall
feels less sharky, doesn't it?
Yeah, Spider and Toya, you got as your juice bar.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'm thinking, bouncer or personal trainer or something. Simon, getting behind the bakery, or even something like, I don't know, like a computer games tester or something.
How about Gary and Ronnie have a business, a security company, and Ryan and Simon are bouncers who are employed by them, and then every so often we can have something like, Leanne and Nick want to run a casino night at the bistro. Oh, guess we're going to have Simon and Ryan as...
Can you imagine Simon as a bouncer? He was not too bouncy. He's more of a boinger or something.
Okay, it's just an idea.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And there we go. There's our main idea. We've talked for 40 minutes already about this.
We haven't come up with anything.
We've come up with a few ideas, but I think if we're doing it actually for the programme, we've got to give them jobs on the street, because that's just the way it is. Filling out the precinct might be a nice idea. Tram driver, I'd like somebody to do, but I can't
another idea
for sure.
That I think would be quite good is we've got Daniel's a teacher. We've had teachers a few times before on Corrie. I don't think we've ever had. Have we ever had? There's more than one teacher who lives on the street. I just really
possibly
want the idea of people that don't work on the street working together somewhere and coming home and bitching about each other, because that would be hilarious and it would give people something to talk about.
That would be funny. I like that.
Yeah.
I just thought, Aaron, I don't buy him as a mechanic.
I do, but you don't.
Bit.
I know you don't.
No,
what do you think he should do then?
Male model, I assume. I don't know.
Well, for Michael's graphic design company, he can, look at a blank piece of paper that Michael could just then put an image on.
There's plenty of jobs that are on my list here. I don't like in the top 10 fastest growing jobs in the UK. We've got things like Chief Growth Officer, Enterprise Account Executive, Cloud Engineer. There's so many jobs here that if you had to say somebody 10 years ago, number 8 job and growing job in the UK is a cloud engineer, they'd think you'd gone loopy. But I don't know.
Chief People Officer.
Who's a good people person? Not sure. Maybe
Not
that could be Billy. He's a good busybody, isn't he?
Chief People Officer, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think that you need to have 3 years experience being an archdeacon to get that
Absolutely. Okay, let's do this one now and then move on to the next question.
Yep, the next question we have is from Bronte, who wants to know, why do you think that despite being on screen since 2019, the Baileys have been underwritten?
Oh, the big Bailey issue on Coronation Street. So we're coming up to nearly 4 years of Baileys on Coronation Street. And I think lots of people would say that they still feel too much like the new family, and we maybe don't know enough about them and they haven't been integrated enough.
Now, my major issue with this is that I'm not sure that this is necessarily 100% true. I think that because they came in with such a big fanfare and because they're so significant in that they're the first black family on Coronation Street, I think expectations are really, really high.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe we expected a bit too much from the Baileys. And I also want to say that they came in just before COVID. So that's the elephant in the room. A family being introduced in 2019, then everyone's wondering why they weren't, they're not involved in everybody's story. It's because they were in their own bubble for 2 years. They couldn't be in anyone's story. And it's almost a miracle that they've been in it as much as they have been, considering that so many struggles existed to make everybody, to give everybody enough screen time during that time, and one of the main criticisms of them is that they weren't, like you say, not integrated. They couldn't be integrated because they were in bubbles.
Yeah, I know, but I think enough time has passed now, and it still feels like they're quite insular.
They're still, I'm going to say
we're
they're on the back foot coming into 2023. They're still on the back foot, and I'm definitely going to say that's a valid argument. But I'm just offering an explanation
of
for
course.
the previous few years, and I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of reasons that some might give as to why the Baileys haven't quite hit the mark. I mean, it is a bit of a surprise in a way that, the Baileys are one of Ian McLeod's biggest legacies. I mean, he came into the show a few years later. He's like, right, I'm introducing this family. I mean, as a producer, to introduce a whole new family into Coronation Street, that's huge, isn't it? But I think part of the reason is that they have often seemed to be only there as kind of token issue stories. And we spoke when we did the James Bailey character profile like 3-4 months ago, that so many of their stories have been related to that. So it was, hey, look, here's a new family. Here's James. He's gay and he's a footballer and he's black and he's going to experience lots of different issues related to that. Here's Ed. He's black. He's going to be he's going to have people criticise the colour of his skin and not take him seriously. There's going to be a racial profiling storyline. Ed's a gambler. It just feels like...
That's not related to being black.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I'm just saying a lot of their stories have been issue stories. But even when they've done those, they've not really felt like they've fully committed to them. So like when James had his... I'm gay, should I come out to my football club? It felt like that storyline was huge for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they went back away again for months and we didn't hear much of it. The racial profiling kind of dripped in a little bit and then it came to a head for a week and then it was gone again, What the Baileys haven't yet had is the big kind of cover story, and I would have thought if I was Ian McLeod, it's like, these are my family, this is my baby, that I'd be like wanting to push them to the front of the show sometimes.
Yeah, there's not been a sustained and focused emphasis on any one particular Bailey storyline.
No.
But I want to say something. I don't think you've done any research on this because you're always really good at writing down all your research and stuff. But new families on the street, I think, struggle really hard.
They do.
And before the Baileys, is it true that it was the Nazirs who were the new family?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're right. The Nazirs were the last family. They were brought in by Stuart Blackburn, weren't they? And what I did do is have a little look and a comparison about what's their trajectory been. And I would say that
you're
now...
talking about their appearance.
Well, in many ways. Yeah. So, like, the Nazirs have been on the show for, almost 10 years now. And they do feel like, to me, they've been well integrated into the street.
Yeah, I definitely agree
But I would also say that when they came onto the street, people were saying, well, here's, the latest family to move into number 6, curse of number 6, they won't last. But they've stayed the course. And I do think that they fit. I still think they're a little bit... They don't integrate a whole lot with others.
Can I just say one thing about the Nazirs versus the Baileys? Now, obviously, they're both families of colour.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely say, if you were to say to me, is there a family who could just go and leave? And in the same way that, give me some examples of families that have come and gone.
The Mortons and the other ones that have... I mean,
the Sugar family.
What
were they called?
Oh my god, the Nelsons, the Harrises, yeah.
Like they are examples of families who just kind of almost just went. They came together and then they kind of all went.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to say
and that
to
stretches
me,
back to like into the 80s with like the Hopkins family as well, didn't it?
Yeah. Now, I think the Baileys feel like that sort of a family. That Aggie and Dad could go, oh, screw this, we're going back to where... Because they were living in a really gorgeous big house before they moved to Coronation Street. Their storyline was, we're on our back foot here because Ed's been spending our money and gambling and we're destitute and we've got to build back up.
Yeah, Michael took the blame for that, didn't he?
The Nazirs, I just don't think that you could just take the Nazirs away. Now, there aren't very many of them left. There's only really Alia and Yasmin. You've also got
Zidane,
who's kind of floating around.
Yeah.
But they just feel like they feel more fixed.
They've got their roots in now.
Yes.
You're right. I think if the Baileys just upped and left one night, I think,
it would make sense in a way.
But the problem is they can't. They can't get rid, after a few years, of Corrie's first black family, because that would be seen as a massive failure.
My point isn't so much that I want either of them to go or whether or not they should go. It's more of a case of, are they so insular that it could kind of make sense?
Yeah,
but like, you couldn't really have Yasmin and Alia leave together, because it wouldn't make sense, because Alia could say, oh no, I don't want to go because I've got my job with Didi, I want to live with so and so, and Yasmin could be like, oh, I live here with Stu, I've got the business. Whereas the Baileys, it feels like they could just say, oh, I sold the business and Agri's going to get another job somewhere else, so we're going. Maybe Michael would stay, I don't know, but they just feel like the sort of family that could leave together. They
could, but I think that, if I'm introducing this new family, if I'm, fanfaring, look at me, I'm introducing the first black family to Coronation Street, I'd be thinking, there's no way this family can go. That's going to be seen as a PR disaster. So I'm going to give them a whole load of stories. I know. And I'm going to try and integrate them everywhere I can. Now, of course, if you compare to the Nazirs have got 6-7 years on the Baileys, and it's hard to, step back in time and think, how well integrated did the Nazirs feel after 3, nearly 4 years into the show? I mean, in those days, we had Cal, didn't we? Because he was as part of the Nazir family for a few years. He went. Sharif had gone maybe after this time. But looking at the character count appearances, which I compared the Baileys and the Nazirs, it did look like, from statistics, that the Nazirs were higher ranked in the appearance count, but only just. So in 2015, for example, which was the first main Nazir year, Cal was 17th most featured character of the year. And that was the highest that a Nazir had ever got towards the top in those first 4 years. But the Baileys in the first 4 years, the highest ranked place that a Bailey has ever got is in 2021, when Michael was the 30th most featured character of the year. So 17 versus 30 just shows that they could push the Nazirs forward. But apart
they could push
they could push the Baileys further, and they did push the Nazirs. Although, I mean, with the Nazirs, we had 2016, Alia was at 26, 2017 she was at 31. We've had in 2022, Ed Bailey was 33, 2021 Michael was 30. So even comparing them, it's still kind of around the 30s. So with neither the Nazirs nor the Baileys, neither of those families none of them were really top 20 appearance characters in their first 4 years. It just is that the Baileys are a little bit lower down the table than the Nazirs were.
Just to be clear, we're comparing them because they're new families.
Yeah.
But obviously, they're not the only families of colour in the street, because you got the Alahans. And I would probably say that the Alahans are a bit more higher profile.
But I mean, they weren't a family when they came in, were they? It was Dev coming in on his own, and then Sunita joins a few years later. I just think that there's very much like for like with these two.
With the Baileys a bit.
Yeah,
better.
the first few years, the Nazirs seem to be integrated more. They seem to be rising up the charts a number of appearances, but not to a huge extent.
I think, can I just say, one of the major things about the difference between both these families seems to be that there are more relationships with the Nazirs, have had more relationships with other characters than the Baileys. So you've got Michael had a relationship with
Grace,
who was brought in specifically to be his girlfriend. Cal was dating Leanne. Leanne was already a very established character. You got Michael and Ed and Aggie obviously are together. Yeah. You had the same with Yasmin and Sharif, but Alia, she's dated a few different people. Rana was dating Jason, Kate,
Gary.
So maybe it's to do with the fact that we've not really paired Michael off with any of the main characters on the street.
James never did either. I mean, he hung around with Bethany for a bit when he was trying to hide his sexuality.
But when he had his boyfriend, it was a new character that they introduced. So really, if I'm giving them advice how to integrate the Baileys, which I don't think was the question, well, why? The question is, why have they been underwritten? One of the main things, apart from the COVID stuff and the fact that they're new, is that they haven't dated or been in a relationship with a character who isn't a new character or a Bailey. That would be my biggest thing. Get Dee Dee in with somebody. Yeah. And get Michael in with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, Michael and Gemma even are kind of possible, I don't know.
No,
but no, I don't think
not.
Gemma's going to with Chesney there as a bore, but I don't know. I was thinking of some other reasons as well. So one thing that is a reason why I don't think that the Baileys have been featured that much is that the jobs that they have mostly don't take place on the street, or they don't involve many other people. So Aggie, she's working at the hospital, so she can
observe people when they're sick.
And that's about it. But she doesn't have any colleagues that are also characters. Ed, he's there, he's had a couple of builders working under him, but one of them's Paul, and Paul isn't exactly a hugely prominent character on the show, is he? Michael has been a stick him in the factory, and we never get to see him there. James was a footballer, so he obviously didn't have any colleagues on the street. So not only do they not have friends, but they also don't really have very many workmates either.
But I'm just going to say, the future's bright on that front, because Dee Dee works with Adam, which I think will give her a lot more.
Well, already putting Dee Dee into this Max storyline is getting a Bailey into a major storyline for the year, and that can only be a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
And you've got Michael working with Sarah now.
Yes, you do. And as odd as that pairing sounds, maybe it's good for the character.
Yes.
I mean, thinking about some of the big Bailey stories, we say, they only give the issues stories and then they put them back in their box again. But actually, Michael's story with Grace and Tiana and everything was actually really quite engaging.
That was one of my favourite stories.
Yeah, I loved that.
And they saved that twist, and that twist was breathtaking.
Yeah, the fact that Tiana wasn't either of their children.
Absolutely fantastic.
But that really, to me, stands out as being almost the one and only decently developed Bailey storyline that wasn't just there to shove issues down our throats. I mean, we had a little bit with Aggie and Tim last year with this emotional affair, but the storyline there was they're just kind of friends. We also had Aggie with Dr. Thorne, but that turned into more of a Peter storyline as well. Even things like the story of, is Michael really Uncle Ronnie's son when they first came into the programme? That just petered out into nothing, and it was still just a Bailey storyline. So yeah, they having more storylines with other characters. So yeah, getting them involved. But yeah, I think that the jobs is definitely a big deal. I do think that possibly the popularity of the characters has meant that we don't see them being used very much. If any of the characters had been like, whoa, everybody suddenly loves Ed Bailey. Ed Bailey is the Danny Dyer of Coronators. They'd be writing big stories for Ed Bailey. But as it is, people aren't really, not many people are going, oh yeah, I love Ed. Michael's certainly fairly unpopular with a lot of Coronation Street fans. James was. Aggie, I think she's the one that a lot of people are saying, oh, I quite like Aggie. She was better as Mrs. Tembe in Doctors maybe, but I kind of like her. But they're not giving her much to do. Of course, Lorna had quite a bit of time off Coronation Street during COVID, didn't she? So that was a bit of a problem. If I was thinking, who do I want to properly develop, I'd be trying to push her to the forefront, because she's a cracking actress and one that lots of people are saying, I think she's quite good actually, but it just feels like they're not really giving her a chance.
I can't really... It's one of those things where I can't really comment on it, because I kind of like all the Baileys, but I know that they're not.
I don't have
that popular.
James was my one that I had the biggest problem with, and now he's gone.
James was boring. And there's no if but or buts about it. He was boring. Michael, I love him. I think he's precious and wonderful. I really think Aggie is such a great character, because she's so sensible and level-headed and caring, but in a very practical manner, which I think is lovely. I think Ed's great because he's a larger-than-life sort of a person. And, do you count Ronnie? I feel Ronnie's the weak link at the moment.
He really is. Like, when they brought Ronnie in, it's like, we're expanding that Bailey family even more, but He's just pointless.
And it's a bit too early for Dee Dee, really, but I have high hopes for that character. And it's great for representation too to see a black woman working as a lawyer and in a very professional
position of power,
job in a show where there aren't that many really highly educated women. We've said this before, haven't we, about the fact that the the education level of the female characters in particular is not particularly that great. So having a black female character being a lawyer, I love that. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. So, do you think that we have answered the question here? I really think
we're getting there. I think to me, another thing that Corrie is always going to have to contend with is, as the years go on, the cast list grows and grows and grows, and the number of regular characters gets higher and higher and higher. If a new family was dropped into Coronation Street in the 1970s, well, of course they're going to be developed more, because the cast is only 30, 40 big at that time.
Quickly about like the McDonald's. The McDonald's got dropped in as a new character, and they were deeply unpopular.
Yes, they were.
This was in the 80s.
This is in 1989 the McDonald's came in.
And they only really got popular when Liz McDonald was given the big storyline about her miscarriage with Katie. Is that right?
It wasn't miscarriage. It was stillbirth, wasn't it? Or no, not or died soon after birth.
That's
but that's
right.
how she came back as fake Katie.
Yes. So giving a character. Now, it wasn't. This is the main distinction. It wasn't a story about raising awareness about stillbirth. It was a story about you sympathising with the character of Liz McDonald. Now, when they've had their storylines, these storylines have served a greater purpose to illustrate a wider social issue. So, homophobia in football, racial profiling, etc., etc. Not to make us sympathise with the Baileys. And that's a big difference. And if the Baileys had a big story that felt pitched towards us emotionally connecting with them, that would be different. And I just want to also say about the racial issue is that when you're trying to educate a majority white audience about racial issues, you're trying to teach them something they don't know. So they're not going to connect emotionally necessarily with that in the same way that you would do with a universally experienced issue, like a stillbirth. Most people are parents, or they want to be a parent, or they're, too young or whatever. So lots of people can really attach themselves to the issue of a stillbirth and feel an emotional reaction. When it comes to racism, there are quite a lot of people who are going to experience that in an emotional sense and say, yes, that happened to me. But when you're talking about a majority white audience, you're teaching them something, and it's difficult to emotionally connect with that in a way that makes you feel closer to the character.
Yeah, and there's always the risk of people saying...
there's always going to be people who are like, oh, I've fed up with this, no, I don't want to that's not true, etc., etc.
Yeah, I don't want to be.
So they're kind of tackling something that's larger than them, which is dangerous for creating a connection to the character. And I wish that wasn't true, and it's not necessarily true for every single person. Yeah. But I think that's another small element.
I think that they have potential. I really think they do. I'd love them. I wouldn't care if Ronnie, dropped off the face of the planet tomorrow. I don't know how long it'd take us to notice.
We haven't even mentioned poor little Glory.
Well, there's only so much you can say about her.
I know, but listen, I remember saying before about Glory that, and maybe Michael, I don't know, and Dee Dee, if they've got this opportunity, but we've got a chance here to create a multiracial family on Coronation Street by uniting one of these major Bailey characters with another major family unit on Coronation Street and creating like the Bailey Barlows or the Bailey Platts or something to create a character, a family unit that you've seen grow from the very beginning as a multiracial family.
I mean, look at Daisy.
As a mixed race family.
Daisy has been in Coronation Street for 2 years and a bit now, and she already feels so much more integrated and well written and well rounded as a character than I would say any of the Baileys do, and that's because they've stuck her with Jenny, with the landlady. They've put her front and centre at the Rovers, and now they've paired her up with Daniel. The heir to the Barlow throne. That's maybe how you do it.
Is listening to, I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but how much of that is listening to and reacting to how the actress portrays the character, and how much of the Baileys is them saying, we want to tell this story with this character. I think if you force something on a character, sometimes it doesn't work out.
No,
I think that they've
always.
swayed. I tell you what, Daisy's one of the. You say that she's, and I agree with you. She's a really important, wonderful, great, easy character to watch, and she's in a really important position. But let's remember back to how she first began. She's gone through quite a lot of different personality changes.
Yeah.
How many personality changes have any of the Baileys gone through? Are they very static, and have they been created in service of a higher purpose that perhaps is antithetical to creating a really interesting family unit that you enjoy watching?
Yeah, maybe.
Are they really? I think that we expect so much, or the show does, of the Baileys. We expect too much, and they're being asked to do, issues. Be amiable, be interesting, be fun, be so many different things. Whereas lots of characters only really service one thing or the other. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just think that they've been given an impossible task almost. And I've said this before too about representation on Coronation Street and in soaps and also TV in general, is when you have one example of something, it's very difficult to create sort of a nuanced story or representation of something, because you everything gets put onto that one person, and it's not necessarily fair.
The other thing that
can the Baileys represent every single black family in the UK? No, they can't.
No, and linked to that, I still think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the Coronation Street writers' room is made of middle class white men and some women as well.
I would say,
and I know that Coronation Street are putting out the adverts and trying to get in some more ethically diverse writers.
Ethnically diverse. Like, well, if I saw somebody's bag, I might go through it when they weren't in the room.
But I don't know whether they're actually getting them, or
know.
then we hire them in for a particular storyline and then ship them out. Tell us about racial profiling, okay? And off you go.
There's definitely a lot to be said about using people from different backgrounds in your writing.
Yeah.
We don't know we don't necessarily know if that's the case. And I also want to I just pull you up on the middle class thing? I think that there are a lot of people with working class backgrounds who are writers, but I also think that I think you might enjoy a slightly more elevated lifestyle if you perhaps work on choreo. At least that's the dream, isn't it?
I'm just basing it on, looking at the names that come up as written by the names in the credits, and it still feels like it's...
We don't know.
I'm kind of making...
You're making stereotypes and assumptions.
Quite possibly I am, but
I would hope that if Coronation Street had a quite diverse team of writers, they might tell us. And the fact they haven't told us feels like they're either sitting, hiding their assets, or they don't have them to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we've said all we need to say about the Baileys.
Well, what does everybody else think? I think we've pretty much
they slowly have integrated them more into the programme. They're certainly not as isolated and underused as they were in the first few years, but it's still very slow going. Compared to the Nazirs, they're not on quite the same trajectory, I think.
Now, I know that at the beginning of the year, we lost another black or mixed race character with Emma going last year, I think we need to just have more characters of colour in general who aren't related to the Baileys. It's nice to have a big black family, but, say if Dee Dee wants a black boyfriend or girlfriend, I don't want us to be... This is what this is their problem that they've had, and they wanted to have a particular race of character. They have to kind of bring them in because they don't exist on the show already. Why not just have a few more characters?
Anyone could be a friend of someone at school or at work or something. Well, they can't be a friend at work because they don't work. Because we know everyone who works for them still work on the street.
Is it true that they're the only black characters? Am I missing some? I don't think I am.
Oh gosh, I don't know them. I'd like to say there must be more. I'm not really sure if there are.
It can't be. It doesn't feel right that the only black characters are all Baileys.
No.
That doesn't seem right. And that might be another reason
Well,
why.
that's why we should bring back Lloyd Mulaney. That's what I say.
I think Lloyd was great, yeah. And, it's a shame that we've lost Emma.
All I'm saying
Emma
is
would make a nice boyfriend.
It's never too late for a character if you've got a story that's the right match. Yasmin was a not universally. People didn't like Yasmin, did they? She wasn't a big character. Lots of people were saying, "Oh, she's over the top with everything. What's the point of her?" But then we bring in that great storyline with Jeff, and all of a sudden, Shelley King they couldn't start giving her awards, that could happen with any of the Baileys. I just really, really hope it does, because no, Yasmin is nowhere near as big a character in 2023 as she was in 2020, 2021, but it feels like she absolutely belongs there now, and I think it was all down to that story. So Baileys, they just need that story, and maybe that'll get them there.
Yeah,
and they'll feel like they belong more.
I really have a lot of hope for the Bailey family. I think they're all really interesting. I think they're all great characters. I think they're really well written and conceived of characters, and I think that the actors are all great. And I know there are mixed opinions about different people, but we've all got our own opinions, and that's my honest opinion, is that I think they're all great, and I really like them.
I like them. I do like the Baileys. Got a soft spot.
Let's see how we can get them in the fold. We want top 20 Bailey appearances for 2020.
Come on.
And we want Dee Dee and Michael to get a nice boyfriend/girlfriend.
Yes.
And we want them to be introduced as a main character who's going to stay in the show, or somebody who's already in the cast.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Get in Michael. Where does Michael still live with Aggie and Ed at the
Michael
moment?
needs to move himself out of that place.
Really does. Come on. He's nearly 30, or maybe
And
he is
got a
30
kid.
now.
It's got a little baby.
Honestly. Right, okay, I think that's it. I think we're done for the evening. Thank you very much. Oh, dear me. Thank you very much to
Bronte and Jack
for those questions. So I'm holding out with my voice at the moment. I hope we've answered your questions well enough, and
I've
provided
enjoyed
a little bit of
them.
interest for anybody listening
and just to
today.
just to, if it's not obvious, which it should be, we are not privy to the inner workings of Coronation Street. We don't know why or what's happened. We can just make educated guesses, and even those might be wrong. So don't take anything we say as gospel.
We think. No.
It's just something that just ideas that we've come up with after working on this podcast for over 10 years. So thank you everyone for listening. If you have any more questions you want to send to us for a future episode of Listener Questions, feel free to email us conversationstreet@gmail.com, and you can find us on all the social medias. And if you like our content, you can maybe sponsor us on Patreon and get some goodies and some free episodes along the way. And I think that's it from me.
Yes, that's it from me. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you
for
listening. We'll be back at the weekend. We've still got some Street Talk shorts coming through the week, so don't forget to check those out on our YouTube channel. But until the weekend, goodbye.